Look at this. I wonder if this right here, there was a lady that would come out and do this for all unmarked graves. So I'm assuming that there was some here because she used to do that.
The cemetery in the South Texas town of Falfurrias in Brooks County is adorned with flower-covered headstones. But Nora Salinas with the South Texas Human Rights Center did not bring me here to see the well-marked graves and fresh flowers. No, it was the open spaces of dry dirt and grass where the bodies of migrants, whose names nobody knew, were buried.
And all this areas is where they've done exhumations.
Where they had bodies that were
unknown. Jane Doe, John Doe.
But now look, I mean, there's nothing here that symbolizes even that this was ever used for burial area.
Yeah, I think we actually need to put some type of marker in remembrance of, what happened.
What happened? People died, most of them alone. Migrants would make their way from the U.S. Mexico border 60 miles south of here. In order to avoid U.S. Border Patrol checkpoints, they would come through sparsely populated Brooks County. Many people call this place the corridor of death. Most of Brooks County is ranch lands, thousands and thousands of acres of shrubs and cactus as far as one can see. Blistering heat in the summer and bone-chilling cold some winters. There were years over the past couple of decades where the bodies of over 100 unidentified migrants were found. Smugglers would bring the migrants just so far, and then they were on their own.
Not making it on your own through the ranch land, people dying, dehydrating. Unfortunately, there's animals out here getting eaten up by the animals. But for the most part, I think this is the place, like I said, it's desolate, it's isolated. You might not see a living soul or a house for miles.
It amazes me that the desperation these people have to take the risk that they do.
Exactly.
Rogelio Nunez is president of the South Texas Human Rights Center. Nunez and the team at the center, with the blessing of some ranch owners, set up dozens of water stations, hoping to give migrants at least a chance to survive. So this is what you would normally bring, just, jugs of water.
Yeah, I think it usually takes about 18 gallons of this. Okay, so you come in and you put it in here.
There's some in here now.
Yes,
huh?
yes.
There's still some in.
Yeah, and you just place it there.
Hey, you guys good over there?
With the enhanced law enforcement and military presence at the border, migrant crossings are down to a trickle, but not completely shut down. When you check on these water stations, when people come out and check on them, do they actually find that it's been used?
Yes. As a matter of fact, when I come up this way from my hometown in San Benito, there's 3 on Highway 186, which is Willacy in Hidalgo County. And there's, I've checked them, like when I go back, I'm gonna check them. About a month ago, I checked them, and there's water has been taken.
So the fact of the matter is that while the numbers are dramatically down, there's still people coming.
There's always gonna be a way to get through.
According to a Customs and Border Patrol estimate, at least 7,500 migrants have died crossing the border in the past 25 years. At the very least, 2,000 of them remain unidentified. If you have thousands of unidentified remains, I mean, the reality is...
No, they're not going to all get identified. Of course not. No.
And then they'll end up, in a grave somewhere here, right?
There's already a lot of them in graves that are unmarked, and families don't know. They just know where they came through, or maybe not. See, look at the hand.
Many were found and simply buried in the dirt where they died. The lucky ones, if you can call it that, ended up in cemeteries like the one in Falfurrias, most in unmarked graves. The migrants who perished and went unidentified needed someone to answer the question, who are you? That someone was Dr. Kate Spradley, a forensic anthropologist here at Texas State University in San Marcos.
Okay, so we're going to talk about several things today. Jurisdictional authority on the assignment that I gave you, and processing a death scene. I'm going to give you some scenarios, and we're going to talk about how to handle these scenarios.
And this would be Operation ID. Back in 2012, Spradley and colleagues formed Operation ID, using their skills in forensic anthropology to identify the remains of nameless migrants. And where did their work begin? At cemeteries in South Texas, where they exhumed bodies and brought them back to Texas State. Why did you decide this was something you wanted to do a dozen years ago?
It's just one of those things where you want to serve your community as a forensic anthropologist, and you hear that this is going on at the border, you hear that people are being found and buried, no DNA samples taken, no chance of an identification happening, no chances of the family knowing what happened. And so myself with some other colleagues, we thought, hey, I think we can help out with this situation. We didn't know how big of a situation it was and how to do it.
How much longer do you think this kind of work is going to be needed? Decades?
Personally, I don't think there is an end in sight.
To date, Spradley and her team of students and postdoctoral scholars have identified the remains of more than 200 individuals. There are hundreds more here. Spradley says that without the help of local residents, many bodies would never have been found.
What really led us to the most exhumations we did were community members coming in and telling us what they remembered. One woman said, hey, I wasn't allowed to buy the plot next to my father because they told me that unidentified people were buried there. Well, we investigated that and found 12 unidentified people.
The work is done in the school's forensic anthropology lab. Working with the bones is both delicate and time-consuming. Some, more recently deceased, still have tissue that must be removed from the bones.
And I would kind of come around that edge and just try to make sure I'm not getting the edge of the actual bone, that it's just removing the cartilage in there.
We know that we are going to be storing the skeletons for, at least a year, if not more. So we try to get them extremely clean. Another reason is that when someone has been identified, sometimes there's family in Houston. Houston is a large hub for undocumented migrants. Right. There's lots of social networks. And we've had multiple families come to our lab to say goodbye to their loved one before they're repatriated to their country of origin. And we've had mothers come in to look at their children. We've had, sisters come in to look at their sisters. Every situation you can imagine. And they look at the remains, they pick up and they hold the remains. And we want to make sure that everything is in a condition for them to do that.
They pick up and hold the remains?
They do, yes.
I mean, that's heart-wrenching, it's brutal.
It is brutal. And to hear the wailing and the crying of a woman holding her son like that is...
It's chill. I mean, it really is brutal, and it gives you chills to think about it.
It does.
For all those who work in the lab, emotions can be difficult to keep in check.
This individual has been outside and exposed. You can see the
bleaching you were saying, right? Yeah.
And then the cracking. So this individual has been out in the elements for quite a long time.
Postdoctoral scholar Victoria Swenson is driven by a desire, as she puts it, to find the end of their story. What's the most emotion you get? Is it out in the field at an exhumation, or when you're able to reunite a family? Walk me through, what is it that's really the most emotional part for you?
The most emotional part for me is when we are doing an intake of an individual and you see the personal notes, the photographs, the phone numbers, and you know somebody's out there searching for them. That's what really gets me.
To Daniela Martinez Herrera, it's very personal.
I come from a migrant family, and so every time I see an individual here, to me it's kind of like my brother, my sister. And what I do, it kind of gives me hope that we are gonna get them repatriated and they're gonna get them back. And so to me, it's like, if I would not be doing this and my loved one would disappear, then would somebody else be doing that?
Kate Spradley says the emotion she oftentimes feels is one of anger.
When you're treating somebody less than equal, when you're treating them as trash, when you're not treating them with dignity, that really makes me angry. You know, that is just as hard as everything else. What we learned over so many years is that these remains, the individuals come over here, they die alone, their remains are found, and then they become administratively lost for a second time. When you pick up remains and you bury them without following the law, without taking DNA samples, or marking where the remains are buried, that is a second disappearance.
The chances of identifying the nameless are greatly increased, Spradley says, when you have fingerprints or DNA samples taken before the remains are in an advanced state of decay. Her team sends DNA samples they take to the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification. Even if an identification is made, the process is far from over. You need a familial match, but that's not likely. Relatives of the deceased in countries outside of the U.S. simply don't have access to the federal database where they can enter their DNA samples. Even if there is a match, someone has to pay for the remains to be returned.
Say that the person was already identified due to either fingerprints or DNA. It'll take another maybe year before consulates need to find family. Family needs to do paperwork with them, and then they either find out if they are eligible for the consulate to pay to repatriate the person back to their country.
Salinas recounted the story of a migrant named Astrid.
Took 2 years, yeah, for her to go back, and once she went back, they had a big old celebration, and the father sent me pictures, you know.
Hey,
walked her through the streets. She came back, because Guatemalan does not let you, cremate. So she went back in a full body. Father opens the coffin to see her.
Oh my goodness.
Can you imagine what he saw?
Those people who perished out there, probably in most cases alone, died alone. And at least in the couple hundred cases that you've been able to solve, you're bringing some degree of closure to the families, right?
Yes, we don't usually say closure, but
Right.
we're providing them with answers because they're living in a world of ambiguous loss. You know, they don't know what happened to their loved one. And, you know, you give somebody an answer, it's not the answer they want, but they don't have to go on with that, you know, ambiguous loss of just not knowing.
Back in Falfurrias, 2 crosses are hammered in the ground, the most recently unidentified. A solemn reminder that ambiguous loss goes on and migrants are still dying alone.